senior lecturer, please. That's for our correction. Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to Sunday service. This is the third Sunday. Obviously, the youth Sunday service. And then we are back with Fireside Chats 2.0 with our own parish pastor, Ayola Ajayi. Thank you very much. But in this case, we'll be referring to him as Barrister Ajayi because we are on a professional ride. And we won't continue until we say this. On behalf of the youth pastor, the president, the ESCO, and the Teens Church, because we are now asked to include them in everything we do, the Teens Church and the Children's Church, we want to say a very big thank you to our first panelist, the person who gave us the encouragement to be back the second time, our own amiable and dearest zonal pastor, Pastor Wale Adeni. Thank you very much, sir. Merci beaucoup. I hope that gets you there. And on this episode, we'll be talking about you and the law. You are not enemies of lawyers, though. It's just the law. They are not the one that made it, though. It's Nigerian Constitution and Lagos State. So, Barrister Jai, thank you very much, sir. Okay, the segment is in 5 segments. The first one has to do with marital acts. We have domestic violence. We have traffic law as well, and the other segment that I'll be rolling out. Please, at the end of the chat, we expect questions. Pass your question through the usher nearest to you, to Brother Peter, and it will get to our lawyer. Please don't raise answers issue. We are done with that. Done and dusted. Morning, sir. Okay, the first thing we are looking at is career and experience. Some of us here, we are having the feeling of, I want to be a lawyer. In those days, when you ask me what you want to be, it's just maybe three, or let me say 4, lawyer, accountant, engineer, and doctor. So please, we want to know your challenges. Even as sweet as it is to introduce you, we want to believe that you have some challenges as well. Tell us some of the juicy parts and the challenges. I don't want to use problem.
Thank you very much once again. Thank you for having me. Permit me to first start by saying that I didn't set out to be a lawyer. I was telling the ushers recently that if I had my way, I hated education so much I wanted to be something you wouldn't. If I told you I wanted to be a vulcanizer, but glory be to God. I hated school so much, but to God be the glory. I found my way to read law, and like you said, like every other profession, career, there are ups and downs. One thing that you find, I have found comforting about it, is that it takes you to almost every field of knowledge. When lawyers say that they are learned, you need to put it into context. It's not a boast. It is a statement of fact. The medical doctor, all his life, except if he gets another degree, is going to deal with medicine. To whatever level he specializes. Same thing with the engineer. But believe it or not, as a lawyer, if you have a case that involves a specialized area, you have to read that little bit. I can tell you a bit of histopathology and some things. Why? Because I did a case that involved a professor, and they had to teach me on cancer. I had to cross-examine a witness. So we have to read things. I've had to read engineering. When they brought an American witness who was coming to speak English in court, and I proved to him that he did not know what he was talking about, I had to understand that bit. So in law, one thing I have learned is it's led me to read other things, apart from the fact that I read a lot myself. In terms of challenges, it's not fully automated sufficiently to the extent that, but we're getting there. With COVID, we're beginning to have online hearings of court. I've sat in my office in Lagos. I've done cases in Port Harcourt, done cases in Ibadan. Due to COVID, which was not the case before. The only challenge the biggest challenge for me now, as an individual, I speak for myself, is corruption. Unfortunately, it's crept into the bench and the bar. There's corruption, and it gives me a challenge. The microphone is not working.
Somebody once said that corruption is now a pandemic. It's not just a Nigerian issue. Again, thank you for that. In the course of our research, we noticed that we have a hierarchy of court of law. Can you just take us through?
Okay, in Nigeria, we have different types of courts. We have superior courts of record and the courts that are not of record. Some courts are mentioned in the Constitution, some are not in the Constitution. The very base of the hierarchy of courts in Nigeria, in the South, you start from the customary courts. That's where you go to if you're talking about things concerning your tradition, where you're from. If you're saying, oh, I married her by, for instance, customary marriage, you're having challenge with the marriage, we didn't do registry, we didn't go to church and all of that, then that kind of marriage, the challenges will be, you'll have to apply the customary court law. There you have one lawyer and the others are non-lawyers. They must know the tradition of that area. And the customary law differs from place to place. After the customary courts, you have the magistrate courts. They do a lot of the work because things that are not so serious go there. So, and after the magistrate courts, up north, before the customary courts, you have area courts, but we don't have area courts down south. After the magistrate courts, that's where you start with the courts of records, the courts that are actually mentioned in the Constitution and where the most serious businesses of courts happen. The high courts, I'll call them the high courts, but there are several of them. You have the state high courts. So you have High Court of Lagos State. Everything, all their powers are limited to things that happen in Lagos State. It's a territorial jurisdiction thing. So on and so forth. Jigawa has its own high court. Now they have the widest powers and the widest jurisdiction of all high courts. The other high court you'd have is the federal high court. As the word says, it is a federal high court. It's owned by the federal government. They situate them from state to state. And they deal with matters that are limited, specified by the Constitution.
That's Supreme Court?
No, that's not the Supreme Court. That's still further on. Then you also have the National Industrial Court. It's still a high court. It's still at that level of high court. They deal with just employment matters, master-servant disputes. They were carved out to do that. And then I think the last one off the top of my head will be the Investments and Securities Tribunal. They deal with matters concerning securities, shares, disputes along that line. That's where you take it to. Of course, you have the maybe election petitions too. So from there, the next level of court is all appeals from the high courts go to the Court of Appeal. Wow. From the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. If you don't like that, then you talk to Jesus about it.
Thank you for Google. Please, we are talking with a lawyer. You expect a lot of vocabularies. You can do yourself well by checking up some of the areas of curiosity. Thank you, sir. Okay, the first segment we are having here is about tenancy and landlord agreement. Please, we all want to be landlords. I know some people start wondering, yes, I want to hear what my side. He won't defend you. All right, okay, the first one is in the course of our research, we noticed that there are different agreements between the mainland and the island, and I was wondering why.
Different what?
Tenancy. This agreement thing that I don't know, the agreement between the tenants and the landlords. It seems there are different type of it from the island people to the mainland people. Is it because they are lows or we too are lows here anyway?
I'm hearing that for the first time, but I'm not surprised because when people delve into these matters, sometimes they deal with quacks. A lot of these things you call agreements are just drawn by agents who copied something a lawyer did, and then they don't understand where it applies. I've seen it before. It's like a form. They make you fill it. The truth is there is just one law called Lagos Tenancy Law of Lagos State that governs tenancy matters all over Lagos State, whether it's VI or Okokomaiko. It's still the same law. And the agreement, the law as per agreement, is the same. It's a question of what you and I want to put in the agreement. But there is no law that says that there's no difference between the law that applies to us on the mainland and those in Lekki, VI, Banana Island, wherever. All
right. I'll go back to my research team. They'll work on that better. Okay, please help us with this clarification of notice of quit.
Notice to quit. Okay. With tenancies are considered to be a contract in law. It's a tenancy, it's a contract of lease. So the law in Lagos State, as in most parts of Nigeria, recognizes different types of tenancies. There are weekly tenancies, believe it or not. There are people who pay week to week. They're monthly, they're yearly, and there's some that they're biennial, every 5 years. It's a matter of how you want to pay it. Now, the law recognizes the fact that the owner of the property could want possession back, but also recognizes that you need to give the person who is the occupant some time to secure an alternative accommodation. Therefore, the law prescribes notice, the length of time of notice that the landlord must give to the tenants before kicking him out. That's what you call a notice to quit. So for a weekly tenant, it's a week's notice. For a monthly tenant, it's a month's notice. But from 6 months upwards, it's at least 6 months. So assuming I wanted my tenant out by January next year, I need to give him the notice by June, thereabout. Yes. But there's a category that does not require a notice to quit. There's one category, and even so many lawyers don't understand it, but the Supreme Court has said it. If by the time the landlord wants the tenant to leave, his rent, the last rent he paid, has expired and he has not renewed, his contract has expired. So that contract that entitles him to the notice is done. I can give him a week's notice and then take him to court. So let's assume my lease is January to December, right? If I wanted him out, I should give him by June. He has 6 months. Okay, I didn't give him a notice. December comes, his rent ends, he has not paid. In January, February, if I decide to kick him out, I don't need 6 months notice again.
Okay, Barrister Jai, that takes me to the next question. Tenants believe that they are entitled to free rent at the point of notice. When you give them notice, they're not supposed to pay you rent, so don't even knock their door.
It's an absolute myth.
Sorry?
It's an absolute myth. It exists in their head.
It's a myth, all right.
It's a myth. The law provides for it. All the law gives you as a right is the right to be given some time to find another place. So when you stay over, in our example again, let's assume I gave him notice on time in June, and it expired in December. He says, okay, I need some time. We reach an agreement. Okay, I'll give you 3 months to look for another place, 6 months. That period is called mean profit. It's rentable. You pay rent for it. Yes. In fact, if he doesn't pay it and he moves out, that's the first one.
Can you get the fillers from the church?
Oh, yes. Except where you find a case. Maybe the landlord looks like, I want this guy out. He can't afford this place. Let him just go. I've seen that happen. I've seen that deal caught. So just go. Even what you are owing, take it. Just go.
All right, thank you very much. So please, if anybody's having notice to quit, they are not expected to stay free.
It's not free, except if the owner decides to give it to you free.
All right, that takes us to the next segment. Thank you very much. Please encourage Barrister Jai for me. Thank you. Okay, the next segment is traffic law. Yeah, a lot of drivers are like, thank you. Okay, in this part of the world where we are, Nigeria, you see different traffic wardens asking you for your driver's license. And sometimes I get confused. I'm like, who is even saddled with this responsibility? Is it the police? Is it the FR? Is it the road safety? Is it the Lagos neighborhood safety corps? I don't even know. Because very soon I'm surprised. Manual will start asking for driver's license now. So please explain, who is really saddled with this responsibility, sir?
The responsibility to ask for your driver's license lies with the FRSC. Federal Road Safety Commission. They have the duty, they have the right to ask you. The police strictly don't have it. Wow. But you know how it is with the police.
Police don't.
They don't. LASMA, they don't. Neighborhood Watch, they don't. The agency that has the right to ask you, strictly speaking, is FRSC. But if the police ask you, please apply wisdom. Just have it. Have it, because you can't argue in that place, that's their office.
So that they won't say Barrister Jai said they don't.
They will just end up messing you up, and then, so if you have it, show it. But strictly speaking, it's the FRSC bylaw that I've read. I understand that Lagos State wants to amend the LASMA law. Their traffic laws of 2012. There was a recent amendment that came out in the papers that was viral. I think they've denied that there's been no amendment yet. I think that new one will create an offense that makes it, I think, 6 months imprisonment if you drive without a driver's license, and that might now give LASMA the right to ask you for that. But right now, to the best of my knowledge, by law, I emphasize by law, FRSC.
Okay, please. How does a one-way driver, how does a person get vindicated, especially when he's misguided? Maybe the traffic warden just told you, yeah, be going, be going. You know, the way we speak in Lagos, we don't even waste time to explain things to people. And then he or she gets accosted by another set of traffic wardens. How does such a person get vindicated?
Okay, before I go into the law, maybe I should educate us all on that. With all due respect to LASMA and police, that thing is a scam. They do it deliberately. I worked in an office before where from the fourth floor, I used to watch the police at Marina in front of the church. Before things even got this crazy, I'm talking early 90s. One will tell you, move. No, just move. As soon as you move, another one comes out in front. As you are saying, that's it, you can't see him again. He's not going to come out to tell you.
Especially in Alausa where you have camera everywhere.
Exactly. So relying on somebody to tell you to go it does not give you an excuse. Reason I said that is that these laws are called strict liability offenses. Strict liability offenses are offenses that do not care about your intentions. It's just the action. If you've done it, you're liable. So whether it's as a result of ignorance of the law or an officer told you, even if the officer shows up in court, he had an option not to bring you to court. Once they bring you to court, they're going to say you took one way. And that's, I think, if the law is applied, it's 1 year imprisonment under the Lagos laws. And if you're a repeat offender, it's actually 3 years imprisonment. Wow. They've not been implementing it, but I hear that Governor Sanwo-Olu is going to ask them to start implementing it. Maybe
so the law doesn't respect the fact that I'm a newcomer.
No, it does
and
not.
And then sometimes the one-way indication is not usually shown.
If there's no sign there, you have a case, but you must be able to prove it. Okay. A friend called me once, and I said, you know what I'm going to advise you to do? Start recording a video now. Wow. Because by the time they take you to court and you say there was no signal there, don't be surprised. They will have planted it. I'll tell you, my sister, that was what saved him. By the time they took, because he really fought it with them, they beat him up and he said, no, as long as they didn't kill me, I'm going to fight this out. By the time they got to court, they had actually planted a one-way sign there. They didn't know he had recorded the video I told him to.
Wow.
It was that video that saved him. And the judge said he was sending all the LASMA guys to jail for setting him up. So if you can't see a sign, in some cases there's actually a sign. Something happened, maybe a car knocked it off and it's not there. Yeah. So you must be able to prove that there was no sign there. Otherwise, you see why they can't allow you to get away by saying, I didn't know. Everybody will say, I didn't know. Even the person that knows will say, I didn't know. Yeah.
Thank you very much. In the course of gathering our question, my research team came back with, should I say, one part of education that some of the reasons why we have people that have to cross the express as against using the pedestrian bridge is because they found out that even on the bridge, they are robbed and all that. So, and I started wondering, is there any law that speaks against crossing the bridge when you have a pedestrian bridge right before you, Absolutely. Irrespective of your reasons?
Absolutely. There are about 2 laws that talk about it. The Lagos traffic law of 2012 talks about it, talks a lot about it. There are some other road traffic laws. The truth is, it's actually an offense to cross an expressway. And believe it or not, a person who is hit on an expressway that is meant for speed, even if the driver stopped, he has a defense. Wow. An absolute defense. He's not supposed to expect a human being to cross. The road is meant for speed. I have seen it in court before. In fact, if you're on a slow lane, there's a fine for being too slow on the fast lane. Yes.
Even if you decide to drive at your own pace.
It's in the road traffic law. We just don't know it. Most of us didn't go to driving school. There is fastest. You find the person who is driving 30 miles per hour on the fast lane. If we had road safety work doing their job, they should pull him over to the slow lane and find somebody who is slow on the fast lane. You're on the slow lane. You're slow where you're allowed to be slow, and some guy is flashing that you should get out of the way. He's the one that should get out of the way and go to the fast lane. Wow. So they are called expressways. You can't cross it in the U.S. If you die there, you die for nothing. In fact, the person escapes in the U.S. and they catch him. They will prosecute him for putting the lives of those speeding in danger, because if they saw him, they could step on their brakes all of a sudden and cause. So at Onikpan and all of that, people crossing in front of the bridge, if they die, they die. They are actually they died committing an offense. There's a bridge there. Go and take the bridge.
So in this case, there's no emotions. The law is not feeling for anybody.
No, the law has nothing to do with it. It's strict law.
So what happened to the cops?
To the cops?
Yeah.
If they find the family, they give the family to the cops. They give the cops to the family. If they know at all. Because, if they don't find out quickly, they dump them in mass things, and then the person is off the radar forever. Okay,
that takes me to the last question on traffic segment. Barrister Jaya has told us that you just have to obey the traffic law irrespective of what is going on. Okay, Lagos State government is pushing smart city. Lagos State government is pushing smart city. Do you now expect me as a driver, I'm coming back from work at an ungodly hour, you expect me to obey the traffic light at 2 a.m.?
Absolutely.
What if those gentlemen of the road just approach me while waiting? I'm trying to obey the law, and then I'm endangering my life.
Well, that's what I say about that. There's a statement that judges and lawyers say, and excuse my French when I say this. They say the law is an ass. Sometimes the law looks actually stupid. Stupid. You just made a valid point. The checkpoint is 1 a.m. and some boys are approaching me. Natural instinct, I'm going to bail. I'm going to hightail it. Anything can happen after that. But strictly speaking, is what I'm telling you, you shouldn't.
Wow. Thank you very much. Please, we are done with this segment. And if you're just coming to church, it's Fireside Chat 2.0. It's a Youth Sunday service. Thank you very much. The next segment is Marriage Act and the validation of the will. When I hear Marriage Act, I feel the women will be smiling. I don't know why men don't get excited on wedding days. When you check pictures, there's always a woman laughing with all her friends, but the guys are like, go easy, spending the money. All right, so that takes me to the first question we have. Is there any relationship between marriage, as in legal marriage, and the will? Is there any relationship?
Between legal marriage and the will?
Yes, sir.
I don't see the connection. A will is something you do to tell people, this is how I want my property to be distributed. And you can give it to anybody. So I don't see what it has to do with the marriage. Or are you trying to ask about the rights of a wife vis-a-vis?
Okay, maybe I should put it up because my research team, they really worked on that. One of the reasons some men will not want to do court marriage because of this. So the legal wife, the first wife in this case, has a right automatically, especially where the man did not put will. Is that correct?
Okay, now you put it in context. It's two ways. It's two ways. Now, when a person dies, he dies in the eyes of the law in two ways. And then he leaves property behind, assuming there's testate and there's intestate. The person that dies testate is the one that has written a will, stating how he wants his stuff to be shared. The one intestate is the one that died without a will. Now, in Lagos State, if a person who is married under the act, which is you went to church or you went to registry. By the way, let me say this. There's nothing like court wedding. What people call wedding is actually a registry. Nobody goes to court. It's a registry wedding. If you went to the registry or you got married in church under the act, and it's not a customary marriage, and the person died without a will, the administration of estates law of Lagos State will automatically kick in. Since he has not by himself said, this is how I want my property to be distributed, the law will kick in. And under that law, it starts in categories. The first category is children, then it goes to wife, then it goes down to that's in their absence. So it's wife and children and wife who gets whatever he has. Or if he left none behind, I think it goes down to brothers, sisters, if none, cousins. So when a person dies without a will, that's what happens. But if you have particular way you want it to be shared, all the person has to do is make a will before they died. Once the person died and made a will, left a will behind, the administration of estate law will not apply. He has already said, this is how I want this to be shared.
Okay, that takes me to one of the lawyers we met during our research. He actually said that the Marriage Act has a provision that honors the wife's position first before the children. What about that? In the case where the woman is still believing God for children. So I don't know, is it correct? That the Marriage Act actually recognizes the wife before the children. So is it correct?
Yes, I said wife and children.
I didn't want and children. A case where the woman does not have.
Where she does not have children.
So what happens?
Oh, yes, it's wife.
Okay. So
wife, where there's no children, it's good to be the wife.
Why I actually asked that question was because
the man left 20 billion behind. He didn't leave a will. 2 million houses. He has a wife in Lagos State. If she has a good lawyer, she gets everything.
Okay, why I asked that question is because these days we hear men saying, it's because of the children I'm considering you. I've heard a man said that to my friend, that I would have done this, and they actually waited for like 5 years before having children. And then they had this issue, and the man said, Toria or more, and I'm like, why do we have men of these days always putting their children first before their mothers?
Okay, my answer to that is that has got nothing to do with the law. It's the individual man that is putting his children before his wife. That's their own personal kettle of fish. There is no law that requires him to put his wife, the children before his wife.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for clearing that. Okay, the next question is, when a man dies and he has written a will, when a woman dies, okay, a widower in this case, he has written a will. Now the first wife has died. Is that will still valid? Regarding the name of the first wife, the first wife has passed on. Now, because he's a widower, he has a right to remarry.
Absolutely.
Does that will, does it still validate? As in, is it valid regarding the first wife's name? Or does it automatically become to the second wife?
If you left a will behind.
No, if he has written a will.
Yes, and he did not amend it.
No, and he didn't amend it, and then he gets married to the second wife. What happens?
Sorry for the second wife. What he left to that first wife will go to what we call the estate of that first wife. Her children, whoever inherits her estate, they get it.
Oh, okay. Until he amends the will.
That's what it is. The wills can be amended. People amend their wills routinely. I've seen people. I'm taking this away. I'm giving more to this wife. This child. I'm not happy with him. So the things people do about their wills will amaze you. It's an interesting thing about wills.
Okay. Thank you very much. In the course of our research, we also noticed that a lawyer was trying to explain to us that these days we have husband and wife writing their will separately because some women are of this opinion that what if the man brings children outside? What do you think? What's the law's position as regard mother, father writing their will at different times?
A will is not restricted to men only.
Oh.
It's not. Okay. We have drafted a will before for a woman who had connections quietly to Babangida in those days, unknown to the husband. The firm where I worked for, we were lawyers to. They both knew we were lawyers to them. It was even husband that brought wife. But along the way, the wife found favor with Babangida's people. She became madly rich. And then, we made wills, personal things.
Oh, okay.
But in the course of sending the wife's copy, insisted, a messenger went and delivered it to the husband. And when he saw what his wife had, it was a big problem. So they should have individuals. You can't share wills.
Oh, okay. No, because I hear women say, your money is our money. But my money is my own money.
Well, with the woman, just like in the case of the man, if she does not leave a will and she left stuff behind, the same law would apply. Her husband and children will come first. automatically.
Oh.
So it's not particularly gender friendly in one direction. It covers both husband and wife. If either of them dies without a will, it's the spouse and the children that form the first category of beneficiaries.
Wow, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. We are done with the segment on. The last segment now, please. If you're just coming to church, we are still on Fireside Chat 2.0. It's about you and the law. The last segment is domestic violence and sexual harassment. Okay, Barrister Jai, when it comes to this issue, I don't know whether to say I'm on the men's side because I've discovered that in this part of the world, men, they cry inside and they don't really communicate what they go through. Okay, in this case of harassment, what's the law's position as regard ladies seducing the men? Because now it's always women that goes out to go and report. We've had former presidents of the US resigning, and during elections, cases like this comes up. So what's the law's position as regard the other way around when the table turns? Because in academic, we see a lot of students do that anyway, female students in quotes. So is there any position of the law when it comes from the women's side to the guy or to the man?
Strictly speaking, the truth is that our laws are not developed enough, and we don't have specific laws targeting harassment, sexual harassment, whether at the office or in academics, the way they have in the US. So what happened to Mario Cuomo in the US, the governor who just resigned, is not likely to happen in Nigeria, except in somebody's dreams. That's the reality of it. But now, in the Me Too era, things are changing. Now, specific states are beginning to pass into law legislation that are dealing with, for instance, lecturers. I don't know of any that deals with workplace yet, but we're moving forward. But globally, there is no law regarding sexual harassment. The way you have laws that are now dealing with domestic and sexual violence, you have laws on that. If that's what you want to talk about, it's a different kettle of fish.
Thank you very much. The last question on that segment is wife battery. Do we have husband battery? Yes. Really? Because we see women that beat up their husbands, and
absolutely.
Sometimes those men don't come up to admit that. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. We have come to the final of Fireside Chat. It's time for questions, please. Please appreciate my panelists, please. Barrister Jai. Thank you very much, sir. Free consultation. We didn't pay you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Please, questions.
We have questions.
Okay. There's a hand there, please.
Quick one. So, apparently, somebody gave me this question as regards FRSC and security agents. So, what happens when there's this security or FRSC person at this edge and telling you're asking for direction, and they say, go. That's the way to go. And so you go that way, and at the end of that road, you discover that you're on the wrong road, or probably on a one-way. So you're telling those ones up front that their colleagues were the ones who directed you that way, and they're saying no. So getting back to that place, they are nowhere to be found. What happens then? Because it happens to me a lot.
I mentioned it early. You entered one chance. Because they will not admit, and they do it a lot. A lot of time is actually deliberate.
Professor, please, let's get a question from the audience. Please give the person the mic.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
So I know that when it comes to medical conditions, the law is somehow, they treat it, they are a bit mild. So in the case of traffic issues, using the bridge, what if a person has a medical condition? Maybe he's allergic to height, arthritis, rheumatism, or whatever, and so he can't use the bridge. And then there's an accident. What happens to the driver and then the patient? Medical
condition.
Okay, if it's an accident, the right of the driver comes first. Because like I told you, it's an expressway that's built for speed. You're not even meant to slow down there. And the driver is not expected to see people crossing. Forget whether it actually happens. That is what his lawyer will say in court. And I've seen people get off on it, on the fact that this guy came out of nowhere. I was flying down the road. It's just 100 miles per hour. Am I running? Was I speeding too fast? No. He's the one that crossed the road. I didn't expect anybody to cross the road. So that person might have an excuse in their head for what they did, but it won't force liability on the driver. It's a different thing if the person gets arrested for crossing the road. If they meet somebody who is reasonable, as in law enforcement, they can now explain that, look, I'd love to climb the bridge, but I have this medical condition. So it can help them as a defense in the case they are accused of unlawfully crossing the road. But God forbid if they get hit and they think they can make a case out against that person based on their medical condition, it's a non-starter. It's dead.
Wow. Wow. Please, any question? Okay. Please, Brother Solomon. Just one more question after Brother Solomon and we are done.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, please, 2 questions concerning marriage. For those that have gone to the registry, they have the certificate from Federal Republic of Nigeria. And for those that have gone to church, there are some churches that are not registered with the law of the country. They will only give them the church certificate. So please, I want you to educate most especially our youth on that. Then the second one is this, sir. At times, men were very funny. Maybe you have the first wife, and it's just a normal certificate that does not register. Then the man passed on. So at the end, there was no will. Somebody now came in and said, I am also his wife. Then I said, no, you said we had a legal marriage. So she presented the certificate that has the backing of Nigerian law. And the first one had nothing like that. What will happen to the man's property?
Okay, your first question has to do with issuance of certificates. What you just asked about actually happens a lot. The fact of the matter is that if you're contracting a marriage under the Act, you must get a certificate issued either by a registry or from a church that is licensed to issue the marriage certificate. If you claim to have a marriage under the Act and you didn't get that certificate, or you did it from a church that is not licensed, because not all churches are licensed, that is not licensed to issue that certificate, and they just gave you their own, I'm sorry, you actually don't have a marriage. And I'm not talking off the top of my head. I've seen marriage nullified because of that. I know a couple who went to South Africa. Something big was going to happen for them. And they just asked them to produce their marriage certificate. And then they produced something to the South African government. Of course, they did a background check. They contacted my firm in Nigeria to confirm if it's valid. The opinion I wrote back scattered everything. They actually traced me and came back to accuse me of spoiling their lives. The truth is, I told the court, the South Africans, they don't have a marriage because the church that they got married at somewhere in Kogi State didn't have a right to issue a license. And I just wrote a legal opinion that these guys are not married in the eyes of the law. They are married in their heads, but for the law, they are not married. So people like that need to go to the right place and get a certificate if that is for them to marry. Concerning the second question about somebody had a first wife that was not married with a certificate, and the second one without a certificate. Yes. Okay. And the man died?
Yes, the man died.
And the question was, who is the wife? Yes. If the first wife was not married under customary law, and she was married under the regular
family law,
under the Act, without a certificate, she's not a wife in the law. So if she went to court, and the other person too went to court against her, the court will give everything to the second person who can have a certificate, because it means the man did not contract a proper marriage. Yes, that's why sometimes the church will insist that people go and do the right thing. When they find out, they encourage you to go and do the right thing, just in case of circumstances in the future.
Okay, before the last question, please. This chat is not entertainment. Please, take it seriously. If you're in a man's house, please do the proper thing. I beg you as a woman. Because this is an eye-opener. You can't work with the man, labor with the man. At the end of the day, 20, 30 years of taking care of his children, somebody else comes all because of a paper, just paper. Please, ask power. Okay, this last question, please.
Okay, good morning, Pastor. I noticed that while you were listing the types of courts we had in Nigeria, you listed High Court, Appeal. You didn't make mention of Sharia courts. So I was wondering your position on Sharia courts and why we have some certain laws applicable in the north and not in the south under the same entity called Nigeria.
Okay. For instance, the criminal law in the north is different from that of the south. They use the criminal procedure code. We use the criminal act here. So it's an arrangement that's supported by law. The Sharia courts are a court under the hierarchy of courts in Nigeria. It's just one of the courts that I happen to have missed it out. It's a court that you are at liberty to subscribe to. It's for Muslims. So though I understand some people said they want Sharia courts in the south for Muslims. So it's a court. I'm sorry I forgot that. But it doesn't apply to everybody down south. And right now, I'm not aware we have any Sharia courts down south because of the how we practice religion here. We're not just strictly Muslim. So all the Sharia courts I'm aware of start from Kwara State upwards.
Okay, thank you very much. We have come to the last of the segment. Thank you. It was Fireside Chat 2.0. And thank you very much. Thank you, Barrister Jai. Thank you for that free concession. Thank you very much. Enjoy the service. And please remember to stay safe, be safe. The pandemic is real. Thank you.